go. Get in here.
Watch the right.
Not too far, just a little
David, just
tiny
look at
bit. Shoulders.
Yeah. The license plate.
All right.
Yeah, be careful of the snake. Watch your fate. Watch your fate.
Okay. Can you all say biodiesel?
Great, it didn't go off.
And none of those projects will be going without subsidies. It's all fully subsidized by the government.
Why do you say that?
Why do I say that? Because I see a subsidy, not only direct subsidy that we are giving to the industry, but if the society has to absorb negative costs of extracting and using petroleum, that's in fact a subsidy. Right. So if you account for all that, it's
Yeah, so if you truly sit down, like Mikhail, right? What Mikhail is saying is that if you truly sit down and begin to factor in all the costs that we have when we are extracting a gallon of gasoline from whatever it takes, 5 gallons of oil to make 1 gallon of gasoline, and that 5 gallons of oil has to come from the Middle East. And that entails having troops there, and that entails having weaponry, and that entails also burning that fuel. That entails the pollution that it will incur. That entails a lot of things that we don't factor in. Yeah, it's going to be between $8 and $15 a gallon. How many of you want to pay between $8 and $15 a gallon? So there are a lot of unfactored costs that go into making our fuel available. We spend $150 billion a year to maintain a military presence around the world. 50 billion of that is to maintain a military presence in, anyone guess? $10. That does not negate the fact, no doubt, we will be paying that much for those of us who will still be buying that fuel. But that doesn't negate the fact that we have a limited supply. I can't emphasize that enough. There is a limited, fixed quantity of oil under the crust of the earth. We're not going to make more, and we're not going to find more. We understand that there are 2,000 billion, essentially 2 trillion barrels of oil. We've used half of it. Energy consumption is increasing. We will use the other half. We won't use every drop because the last stuff's going to be very expensive. It's going to be so uneconomical to use it. But we will be using alternatives, hopefully.
So hopefully it'll come out in the wash, but the most important thing is the fundamentals of it.
How many of you care about global warming? How many of you think about it, read about it, interested in it? You'd be surprised. Like, I go to conferences and I ask that question, and I get maybe 1 or 2 hands up. I mean, we care. We're into the environment. I mean, obviously, you all are, you're pioneers. You come up here into the mountains to learn about this stuff. In some way, you're part of a very small but powerful revolution. You're interested in changing the way things are. The bottom line is, we care about the environmental impact. Most people are forced by the economic impact. Most people are on the result end, not the effect end. So when you're thinking about, well, how's this situation going to change? How am I going to convince somebody that this is important? It's an economic reality that most people don't care about global warming. I'm not trying to discourage you. There is in that economic reality a very fundamental thing that we have to think about, and that is, I like the example of the Exxon Valdez. A huge ship is heading somewhere in the ocean. There's a tremendous amount of momentum, and even though this ship is heading for a certain disaster, here's our boat. It's a beautiful boat. It's heading this way. The captain realizes that there's a reef up ahead, and he begins to turn the ship. And the ship turns, but it's still got so much momentum that even after the ship is all the way turned, it hits the reef. That's kind of like the economic reality that we're living in. We have a tremendous fossil fuel infrastructure around the world, and that is what are we going to do in the next 50 years? Are we gonna deprive ourselves? Does that sound like American society? Are we going to substitute for other things? Public transport? Are we going to change our lifestyles? Come on, I mean, you guys can be positive about this. Like,
Well, if the coastlines change, you can think about some economic costs, like in Florida.
there you go.
Or, there's a lot of places like that.
What about conservation? You think that people in the U.S. will be willing to conserve? Sorry, sir, you can only drive 10 miles this week.
California.
What are we gonna use to fill this? I mean, we've still got to get goods and services to people. You guys are the pioneers. Tell me.
We use sun.
Use sun,
We use sun.
wind, water,
Higher efficiencies with our usage, generally speaking, of fuel cells.
fuel cells,
Usually the key.
education. I like that. Yeah, less expensive than all the other stuff. Hydrogen. Sure, right. There's not one solution. But all of our solutions ultimately come from solar-based energies. Energies that are derived from the sun. Oil itself, the fossil fuel that we rely on, is ultimately derived from solar energy. I mean, whether it was plants or animals or algae that was trapped beneath the soil billions of years ago, they were solar beings. They took sunlight, they took elements on Earth, they combined those into a chemical format, and then we have extracted that chemical format with the detriment to our atmosphere, which the people in this room care about, some people who met in Kyoto care about. But regardless of that, all of that energy is solar-based. And we need to look at solar-based solutions for the next 50 years, and not solar-based solutions that were created billions of years ago. Something that we can take the sun's energy, put it in a liquid form, put it in a usable form that we can get transport out of, that we can move goods and services from A to B. Why? Because that is what our society relies on. And that is what the rest of the world is expecting after seeing our lifestyles, after seeing how well we live. I mean, truthfully, those of us sitting in this room have access to wealth beyond the dreams of the majority of people on Earth. Why? Because we have access to energy. So we have sort of some time, I'm not sure how much, maybe it's 20 years, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 50, to figure out those other solar solutions. The solar solutions that are basically going to fuel our society and the rest of the people on Earth who are expecting us. They're not expecting them to figure it out. We're the ones that figured out Madonna, Coca-Cola. We've got Michael Jackson. We've got airplanes. The world looks toward the people in the United States to figure this stuff out. We've shown them how to do it thus far, and they expect us to show them how to do it in the future. Which brings me to biodiesel. I don't think biodiesel is the only solution to our problems. I don't think it's the missing link in the energy world where we're going to get the majority of our energy. But it is something that we can do. It's something that each of us can do with our hands. We can learn how to do it. It's not rocket science. It's bucket chemistry at the best. I mean, those few of you who've made biodiesel, you know that it's, somewhat of a crapshoot. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work. It's not a perfect science, especially if you're using used cooking oil. But there are 3 billion gallons of used cooking oil produced in the US each year. That's a tremendous resource that we're not using.
Some of it's being used.
Some of it's being used, but it's not being used for energy purposes. It might be used in cosmetics, dog food, other things like that. I mean, I think Mary Kay and Purina can take a break for biodiesel. How many of you knew that the diesel engine was designed to run on vegetable oil from the start? That's awesome. That's so cool. Right, before you read the book. Rudolf Diesel grew up on the border of Germany and France. He had agricultural parents. He basically grew up in peanut fields. And the guy thought, well, I can use my technology that I learned in refrigeration. He grew up learning refrigeration technology. I was involved in some pretty heavy-duty patent work around the turn of the century. Said, I can use that technology to create an engine that will run on almost any fuel. And he did. He created an engine that ran on coal dust and water. He put the coal dust and water in it, started it up, and it exploded. And about 5 years later, he had a working model. And that working model fueled the World's Fair in Paris. It literally put the lights on. They put peanut oil in it, and the engine ran the World's Fair. 100 years later, we're scratching our heads looking for an alternative fuel source. And we find out that there's this guy named Rudolf Diesel. Maybe there's another picture. Okay. Who made engines that still run today. I mean, these engines are in museums in Germany. They crank them up every once in a while. 100 years old, still running, because the technology was just so strong, so well made. The man knew what he was doing. So we're looking back in time to a guy who was most likely assassinated for his work because it was so revolutionary. It threatened to throw the balance of power in maritime warfare because the engines could run on these fuels. If you read Rudolf Diesel's biography, it's kind of like an Agatha Christie novel. I mean, there's all these people involved in scandals of huge sums of money, and eventually the one who must pay for it is the revolutionary inventor. Let's go on to the next one. These are some of his original engines, 3 stories high, that are still running 100 years. That's what we do with diesel. We take a fuel that is not ignitable. I mean, I can throw a match on biodiesel, I can throw a match on vegetable, I can throw a match on diesel fuel, and it won't ignite. We take that fuel, which is relatively, there's a few cool things about it. It's safe to transport. It can be stored. And it can be stored around flammable things. But if we take the thick vegetable oil that some of you have seen sitting in the garage over there, and we thin that out to be roughly the same viscosity as diesel fuel, it'll run in a diesel engine without modification, which is a very cool thing if you, say, happen to own 1,000 buses and you'd like to fuel them with something else. Once it leaves the restaurant, assuming it goes into a recycling plant of some kind, it can go into dog food, it can go into cosmetics, it can go into... When I was in Guatemala, I often saw this very dark oil that said mixed vegetable oils on supermarket shelves. That's where it came from. So it's also sold to third world countries.
So we are an export country after all.
Vegetable oil, I mean, I didn't go over this, but I assume everybody here is pretty familiar with it. Vegetable oil can come from so many different plants. Canola, soy, hemp, corn, sunflower, rapeseed, coconut. There are over 1,000 species of oil-producing plants. You can grow them in just about every single climate on Earth. You use the seed from a plant like that to make vegetable oil. It goes through a press, whether it's a small press or a huge industrial press. Then you've got vegetable oil. Well, the vegetable oil is mixed with NaOH here. He has a methanol. These two things are combined. They go into the vegetable oil, and everything's mixed together. You mix it for an hour, you heat it, and then after it settles, you're left with glycerin on the bottom and biodiesel on the top. This is the way I did it. I produced the majority of the fuel that I made. About 1,000 gallons of biodiesel on the road, mostly from Kentucky Fried Chicken and Long John Silver's restaurant fryers. It was called the Green Grease Machine. It was something that I cobbled together with some friends and some junk that we had lying around. Basically, we had a big steam kettle that we mixed the stuff up in, a system of valves that eventually, well, they melted. We just ended up using hoses. We had a little diesel engine with a generator that generated power for everything. I used a Champion juicer as the motor for the pump. And this is just stuff that was lying around. It's amazing how cheaply you can build a biodiesel process. That's a picture of a canola plant. In Germany and Europe, you see canola or rape all over the place. I mean, they just fields and fields and fields of it. It is an incredibly well cultivated plant. It produces about twice the oil per acre that soy does, unfortunately. So, but we are big soy supporters in the U.S. Does anyone know why? Does anyone know that we didn't even grow soy in this country 20 years ago?
Yeah.
20?
Yeah.
Wow. Protein. Now we trade it on the commodities.
Does anyone know why we grow soy? No, it's the best cattle feed there is.
Here you go.
Yeah.
It's not a chunk.
The bottom line is, overall, out of all the tests that we've done on biodiesel, the emissions are lowered, substantially so, up to 75% less, with some of the worst emissions, some of the cancer-causing polyacrylic hydrocarbons, the PAHs, which the European Union has basically just said, look, diesel fuel is carcinogenic. If you're going to be around it, you're going to have your kids around it, you're in a cancer-causing environment. Biodiesel does not produce the same level. It produces basically benign levels of those cancer-causing agents. This is a test by Porsche. They run one cylinder on biodiesel, one cylinder on diesel fuel. This is about the life and health of your engine. Biodiesel has a higher lubricity. It basically lubricates the inside of your engine, making it last longer, if it's made correctly. The basic concept is that the same amount of carbon dioxide that goes into making a gallon of vegetable oil, maybe it's an acre of plants will give you 50 gallons of vegetable oil. You burn that 50 gallons of vegetable oil, it will produce the same amount of carbon dioxide that those plants in the next acre will consume. It is a no net gain in carbon dioxide, meaning you do not increase the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere when you burn biodiesel fuel. I don't care where you test it, it will always come out the same.
Is there a statistics how much the carbon dioxide will decrease? The carbon dioxide emissions will decrease if the diesel fuel is replaced completely by biodiesel?
Yes, you create about 22 pounds of carbon dioxide for every gallon of fossil fuel you burn.
Right.
So anyway, and that's something I forgot. 3 more points, and then I promise we'll take a break. Because I wanted to get through all this so we could go into the chemistry after the break. Basically, when you make biodiesel, there's something called an energy balance ratio, which means the energy it takes to produce fuel versus the energy that you are receiving from the fuel. When you make petroleum, it's already made, but when you extract it and put it into the form of gasoline and then put it in your vehicle, your energy balance ratio is often negative. And if you think about that, it makes sense because we've got so much petroleum that we can use petroleum to make more petroleum. But in a very real economic sense, it doesn't make sense to use more energy than we get out of the energy that we're making.
So what you're saying is it took more than a gallon of gasoline worth of energy
To create-
extract it, bring it to you, put it in your tank.
Yes. Josh, right?
Yeah.
That's absolutely, Josh's good point. That's a
I'm
simple
just
way.
trying to understand what you're saying.
Yeah. But with biodiesel, it's not that way. For every 1 unit of energy that you put into making biodiesel, be it gasoline, be it biodiesel, be it solar, however you're making that stuff come out of the plants, go into biodiesel, and go into a tank, you're getting 3 units of energy out of biodiesel. Where does that other energy come from? Sun. Biodiesel is a liquid solar fuel. It is like a battery that is in a liquid form. We have taken energy from the sun and put it into making a chemical substrate that we are going to use to create momentum. That is a very cool thing. This is my van. It's called the Veggie Van. It drove around the U.S. I did 25,000 miles. It was supposed to be a 1-month trip. It turned into 2 years. It's an old Winnebago. It's a 1986 Winnebago. And I lived in the van, and I, just promoted biodiesel because I thought I just got really passionate about it. I was like, I can't believe people don't know about this. This is really important. This is crucial. I mean, there are 1,000 fuel pumps in Germany. You can drive your diesel vehicle up, pump in biodiesel, and drive off. 100% biodiesel. We have, so far in the U.S., 2. This is my next project car. It's a 1971 240Z. It's a Nissan Datsun. I got so tired of people asking me, how fast can you go in the Veggie Van? that I decided to build something that they wouldn't ask that question after they'd ridden in it anymore. So I'm currently putting a 2.8 liter Nissan overhead cam diesel engine in the 1971 Z. And they just went, look, this is a health issue. You're dying because of this. And everybody's like, whoa, I don't want to die. Then all of a sudden it's an issue. So I think health is something that we completely underestimate as far as a tool to get this information out to people.
I have a personal theory about the long-term perspective of biodiesel. I think biodiesel is a solution it's only a temporary solution. And it will be replaced finally, as far as I can imagine now, by fuel cells. But biodiesel is important for us right now because it's an easy way to reduce the CO2 and get to the global warming. If you don't want to hear it, sorry. It's important to have it. Unfortunately, it's not promoted because it will hurt some big companies that are ruling not only the US, not only Europe, that are ruling all over the world. And they will not allow it, in my opinion. And they will not allow it as long as they have the power to rule us. If they run out of their own fuel, yeah, okay, what will be left? Maybe they will capture the hydrogen industry. And if we are running then on fuel cells, they will rule us again. Maybe. But then we are not killing our planet. Maybe this is the advantage.
Yeah. I have to wonder what will become of biodiesel if it will eventually end up in the hands of oil companies and things like that. My personal feeling is it will always be a more decentralized fuel. The problem with giving oil companies the power that they have is they have the power to dictate who gets energy and who doesn't. They have the power to dictate, who is penalized for having energy and who is not. And whether we use biodiesel for 10 years or whether we use it for 20 years or whether we use it for 30 years, this industry will pave the way for decentralized fuel sources, be it hydrogen, solar, fuel cell, some other thing that we don't even know about. That's why it's essential that we do it and we do it right, because we're paving the way for decentralized energy. And decentralized energy is, in my opinion, one of the only ways of reducing poverty, changing the infrastructure, leveling the playing field. I'm only talking about a revolution here.
Good morning, everybody. As a background of myself, I was born and grew up in the Philippines, and then I started doing renewable energy sources way back in 1980. After I finished school, and I was tasked to find some other lucrative products out of root crops. So at that time, I started to develop ethanol, and with that, I have to find also a simple equipment that I could make out of, and then eventually they probably liked my work, so they sent me to England to pursue for my master's degree. And there in England, my work was on solar energy. I developed a solar dryer, and I use it in England, and that was my master's degree. And I went back just for a few months, and they decided me to send her to Idaho, and that's where I pursued my doctorate in Idaho in agricultural engineering. And I got stuck in Idaho because I like Idaho, because I could go fish, hunt, and I could sustain myself without depending from other people. So that's why I really like Idaho, and it's very close, like Montana. And there in Idaho, before I graduated, I started to get involved in biodiesel production at the University of Idaho, because University of Idaho was the one who was pioneering the work. In fact, in the late 70s, they started to to use vegetable oil, straight vegetable oil. And I remember the story by our boss, I mean, Joe and I's boss, said that they had run straight vegetable oil for diesel because they have read way back, it will be in my history about diesel power that they did, I mean, so they did run some that because of that energy crisis. And then in 1989, that's what I started working on biodiesel. And in 1990, when I finished my PhD, Dr. Peterson, who was have the project, asked me if I could develop the ethanol process using ethanol instead of methanol. So that's why I stayed for about two and a half years in Idaho, and I developed the ethanol process. And when I left, Joe and his group, the late Professor, was that Joe? Sedbeck, continued the work, and then at that time I went overseas. I mean, I went to different countries to help farmers and other marginalized people to that they could process vegetable oil, I mean, out of sunflower, out of other things, copra, other things. And I trained a lot of farmers, especially women in Africa, in particularly Uganda, how to run, how to maintain their small-scale vegetable oil processing machines. Most of them comes from England and Germany. They're small-scale oil mills. But I mean, I think I have probably trained about 500 small-scale processors, mostly farmers, on vegetable oil processing. Usually I shift on paradigms. I mean, I don't go to the normal way, so I told them that if you could just produce industrial hemp, I don't think, I mean, you will have a problem, but I don't have to get any support from them, because for industrial hemp, you get the oil seeds, which is free, because your main product will be the fiber for making fabrics and textiles, and then your oil would be a freebie. And the good thing with the oil is that a lot of the varieties, especially the varieties from Asia, some of them you could harvest about 500 gallons per acre. Compared to canola, which is sometimes it can go up to 120 gallons per acre. Compared to mustard, which is probably about 150, 170 gallons per acre. And then for industrial rape, some people claim that they could go up to 200 gallons per acre. But if you could compare industrial hemp, which is a freebie, you could get about 500 gallons per acre. Our fossil fuel is running out, and over 300 million years ago, the salt and other things were trapped in salt and decompacted until they become oil. And this whole process takes about 40 million years. I mean, global warming, Earth is getting warmer, and it is CO2 or carbon dioxide is a contributing factor. In the year 1750, we have only about 280 parts per billion in the air, but in the last year, we have 360 parts per billion per year, and hot year started in 1980 because of, and then we had that El Nino, La Nina in the late 1990s. And fossil fuel decreases economy. Our current expenditure for imported oil is about 70 billion per year. And then we have an increased national security because we don't have to send troops. So that's, and another, I'm really glad that Mikhail thinks about conservation, because I've been also doing this, and although, I mean, you have to use smaller engines, just like other countries in the world. In 1913, Dr. Diesel proposed to convert English submarine fleets to diesel engines. But on his way to England, he was assassinated by the French to prevent the conversion. And this was reported in or suggested by some English newspapers at that time. And in the 1910s, the petroleum industry labeled gasoline byproduct as diesel to fuel diesel engines. And peanut oil or any other vegetable oil was forgotten after that, because I don't know what happened at that time. And in the 1930s, The esterification process was discovered by Rockledder, and in 1979, the University of Idaho. I put USA there because I go all over the country to present this. So it started vegetable oil as fuel research, and in 1987, the University of Idaho developed refined actually the biodiesel process using methyl ester. At that time, biodiesel was not yet termed. Actually, we started to term biodiesel in 1991. And it's biodegradable. I mean, in less than 1 month, bacteria, it's a bacteria's food, it degrades very easily, less than 1 month. Actually, in 21 days, 98% of a spell is is gone. Because bacteria just, they like it. So in less than a month, they are gone. And then it's environmental friendly, less particulate matter, less smog, exhaust fumes smell like barbecue and popcorn. No sulfur or lead, non-acidic, so no acid rain, and could be a neutralizer. And then recycles carbon dioxide, emissions reductions, gases and particulates. On the average, the reduction is 60% compared to diesel. But we had a plant mass coconut biodiesel production. I'll probably put at least 50 small-scale oil plants all over the Philippines. And we plan to produce at least 26,000 gallons per day, total all the
Awesome.
50,000, yeah.
Great.
Now, I know a guy in Peru that's doing it with fish oil.
Yeah, you can do any triglycerides.
Yeah,
Any
he's got
triglycerides.
one of 3 plants that just
Yeah,
started.
any triglycerides. Yeah.
You know, being in logging country, and you're in logging country, yesterday, 2 days ago, someone suggested the pine oil.
Yeah, I mean-
As you watch the fires, you see the, and the pine oil, and we're all in logging country. Has anybody tried any tests on the pine?
If you could separate the oil from the resin, then if you could separate all the triglycerides from then you can do that. Yeah. But we did. I mean, I did. Yeah. Well, no. Yeah, but fish oil, I tested fish oil, bacon grease, duck tallow, beef tallow. I tested everything.
Oh, yeah, and I think in Joplin, Missouri, they're using the waste of the chickens after the process.
Yeah, in fact, my friend in Seattle who works there was,
Carthage, Missouri.
my friend told me that I think we should put one near a hospital in Hollywood for liposuction. That's what he said you should put one in there. And this is a summary of a lot of the studies that I compiled, and CO2, it's 100% because of the use. Sulfur dioxide, because there's no sulfur added on the fuel. The soot or particulate matter, it ranges between 40 to 60% less than diesel. Carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons, it differs from 10 to 50%. And then the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, that's the one I'm very keen on because they are carcinogenic, mutagenic, and teratogenic. In some of the compounds, there's a reduction of up to 97%. Yeah, some of the compounds up to 97%. So
Going back to what his question was in the back though, there is a carbon input with the methanol.
Mhm.
So it's not if the methanol is made from natural gas, then there's probably not 100% reduction.
yeah, I see that. But what I did is I just go into how much being used for plants here. And then for NOx, it's plus minus 5 to 10%. To me, I mean, the way just Michael said, it depends on the engine's age, design, tuning, and anything. Or if you're a loving driver, I mean, you can do that. And this is the current here in the United States. You have from Audi, BMW, from Audi to Volvo. Cars, wagon, pickup trucks, vans, buses, SUVs. And then the engine range from 1.8 to 7.3 liters that uses biodiesel right now. Work trucks, fire trucks, semi-trailers, or semi-truckers, bulldozers, off-road vehicles, ATV, four-wheelers, tractors, generators. And then lanterns, stoves, heaters, heating oil, this kerosene heater like there, you have used biodiesel. This one here.
The
100% biodiesel. I also used 20, 20, 60, 20% vegetable oil, 20% ethanol, and 60% biodiesel. Because with the presence of biodiesel, I don't know, it just likes to make everything mixable. Is it cheaper to make? It's yes and no. If you have to buy the vegetable oil or animal fat, the cost is about $1.82 per gallon. That's our experience. And then if your waste cooking oil is free, you can produce it for 87 cents a gallon. That's on the 300-gallon batch.
And that's buying
Used cooking oil.
Then pure rapeseed oil. Bioman has made some tests with using pressure chamber engines. You can buy the Deutsch engine, Deutsch pressure chamber engine. You can buy for using pure vegetable oil, and so we have a diesel, the Elspeth engine that I'm used, and it worked very well with pure rapeseed oil, and then we can heat the rapeseed oil that you have seen on the van outside there, and that it's that David will use, and you can also mix the biodiesel with diesel fuel oil. In Sweden we have also had a fuel, a paraffin oil mixed with rape methyl ester that have been called scarfy. It's also possible to use the ester, use vegetable oil as two-stroke engine oil. I have seen motorbikes running on it. I have seen chainsaws running on it. And if it's a mixture with ethanol and you're running it, you get a very it's the smell. It's exactly than if you drive on pure vegetable oil. If you have two-stroke engine oil. I have and they have used it for some motorboats too, two-stroke engines. Alcohol engines, spark plug assisted. Here you have a piston, and here you have a sparking plug and the injector, and then the injector injects the alcohol, and then it vaporized in the engine, and then you get the spark, and that ignites it. So it's something in between a diesel engine and auto engines. So this engine is both a diesel engine and an auto engine on the same time. Here we have another one. Here we have a glow plug that is glowing, is heated.
Is this not damaging your engine?
Perhaps I think you have to have some filter to take the sulfur, what was it when the English name now for it? Sulfur hydrogen out of it before, because that is acid, and it's rather corrosive. Now we can go on with the engine. Now we know how we will make the gas. If we have our diesel engine and want to run it on biogas, then we have biogas and diesel oil, and we, in the most simple way, we put in the biogas in the intake air, and then we ignite with diesel oil. So it's a rather simple system. Here is some examples from Switzerland. Now, if we look at our countries, in Norway, there are some biodiesel plant that it made on farm, and so you have plans for making fish to esterify fish oil too. They are thinking about, because in Norway they have a lot of surplus of fish oil that they need to take care of. In Denmark we have some both small, but with biogas we have some small and some bigger plants. And in June a plant for biodiesel have just started. 40,000 cubic meter annually. In Finland, I don't know, but they have done big batches as ratio. Germany, it's the big country in Europe. They have a lot of rape methyl ester and the biodiesel, 230,000 cubic meter annually, and they will perhaps within 2 years will be 1 million cubic meters. So in Germany they built out the biodiesel very quick. They have also a lot of small biogas plants. In France they are using ethanol, but they use is ethyl tertiary butyl ether. And so we have some environmental indices that a chemist from Chalmers made. And as you can see, which we are using, bicycle is the best one. So then we need to use a bicycle, and you can also electricity may be good. We have rapeseed oil down here. We have diesel oil and petrol rather high up. We have ethanol and methanol.
Environmental effects.
And now, which fuel are we going to use? We can see characteristics. If we want to emissions, they are the best for the alcohols and the biogas. Simple production, here we have a vegetable oil. The alcohol is the most complicated, but biogas is also, it's more complicated than making rape methyl ester. Energy balances, it's rather good for rapeseed oil and biogas, a little less for rape methyl ester, and it's rather bad for the alcohol because of distillation in that car. And here we have an Elspeth engine, and I think I showed you this picture yesterday. We can see here is the regulator for the injector, and here you have a regulator for injection times. Here we have the Elspeth engine. We can see the spherical injection chamber. We can see the injection nozzle, the injector. Here we have an Elspeth engine that you can see here. We have oil for cooling here around the cylinders, so we can see that it's oil around here for cooling. And here we have a funny engine too, that Elspeth has built a 12-cylinder engine that they put into a car. It was more than 300 horsepower, and they put it in a rather small car. It made that car almost impossible to drive, because if you just push a little on the accelerator, it will spin off. But I put it on. Pardon?
How many kilometers per hour?
They didn't. I don't know, but I don't think anybody wanted to test it. Here we have another rebuilt engine, another Elspeth engine that is rebuilt. Here we can see the cylinders, and we have only old. Here we have a tractor running on rape methyl ester, and it was 1988. I was here, and that tractor had in 1988 been running 5,600 hours with pure rapeseed ester. So they had, I think it had been running since 1982, and that's what I had.
For today, and that's Jim Evanoff from Yellowstone is here.
National Park. Jim, what's your title at Yellowstone?
Designated driver of the biodiesel.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Jim.
Yellowstone in 1995 became the first national park to introduced an alternative fuel. And if you guys come around here, you can see on the side of the truck all the sponsors or partners that were developed in the creation of the biodiesel project. What we wanted to do is, or what these partners wanted to do, is give this truck the ultimate test. And Yellowstone was the answer for a number of reasons. Our high elevation, severe climate, and high notoriety with 3 million plus visitors a year. It was the ideal field test area that they could experiment with 100% biodiesel. Dodge Truck donated the vehicle. At first they were reluctant to donate it, and then when they found out it was going to be stationed in Yellowstone Park, they went for it, because since that time their executives have used that for an excuse to come out to Yellowstone every summer. And that's okay with us. But so the intent of the experiment was to run this truck for 100,000 miles on 100% rapeseed F-Lester biodiesel. Mexico. We, after the first season, didn't want to get rid of it, and so we insisted on keeping it, and we've had it ever since, and have driven it year-round in fairly severe climate and elevations upwards of 12,000 feet. One of the challenges of experimenting with an alternative fuel in a rural application is availability of the fuel. The fuel is made at the University of Idaho in Moscow, and they shipped it in 270-gallon totes to Yellowstone, and we stored it in Mammoth Hot Springs. That was the only place that this truck could refuel. Part of the rules were nothing petroleum-based was to go into the gas tank, and for the first 100,000 miles. And they wanted me to put a lot of miles on this truck in a short amount of time, which was fairly hard to do when I only have a 32-gallon tank and there's only one place to refuel. As a result, us and the Park Service fabricated a 300-gallon tank, which affords me the opportunity to go 6,000 miles between Phillips. I drove this truck to Nashville and back without refueling. I mean, you still make the pit stop. At last estimates, and of course it depends on the year and the yield, but this truck gets about 3,000 miles per acre on rapeseed. This actually runs whatever Joe delivers. Sometimes it's rapeseed, sometimes it's a mixture of mustard seed oil. But we don't ever notice a difference. We've done extensive dynamometer testing on this truck since the beginning. It used to be twice a year, either at a facility in Spokane or Billings. And what has resulted is basically no loss in horsepower, about a 1% loss. About a 1% loss in horsepower, about the same miles per gallon as a conventional diesel. Since 1995, when Yellowstone introduced this, currently 22 other national parks are on biodiesel, including Channel Islands out in California, which uses biodiesel on their entire boat fleet. The next step with Yellowstone is occurring as we speak. We're expanding the biodiesel program to the greater Yellowstone area. And we're talking about a B20 for starters here, a 20% blend. We're going to make it available to the public next year. And already Grand Teton has gone to B20 as well as the Tom Jackson Home. So we don't operate in a box in the Park Service or in Yellowstone. We'd like to see the gateway communities in the surrounding region. We're surrounded by 6 national forests. They are also going to B20. 3 of them have already this summer. So it's taken off, and this is exactly what we wanted to have happen when we introduced this, was that niche markets would be created locally or regionally that would support this type of fuel. And the big plus, of course, is no modifications to your infrastructure or your vehicles, and that's why this is such a valuable fuel. When visitors come into Yellowstone and they want to do the right thing, they can make a conscious choice of grabbing the biodiesel pump or the conventional diesel pump. And then when they go home, they're hopefully going to take that message with them. And that's the whole intent, and it's unfolding exactly the way they had planned.
Now that you're moving towards the commercial biodiesel producers, how much is it costing you for straight biodiesel? So
That's one of the reasons we're expanding to include the entire region so that we can buy in huge volume. We're talking 3 rail cars a year, 60,000 gallons of raw biodiesel. We've gotten quotes from an outfit out of, it's World Energy, and one of their plants is in Kansas or Nebraska. Of course, it's soybean-based. They're quoting us, if we buy in the quantities we're talking about, $1.20 a gallon.
Awesome. That's 100%.
That's 100%.
How much would it cost?
And then we'd splash blend on site.
Yeah.
That was our last hurdle.
That works great.
And then, of course, what has happened in the past, and the example is E10 or ethanol blended fuel. We introduced that the same way, first administratively in the park, then we offered it to the public, and as a result, now there's all the gateway communities, Cody, Jackson, West Yellowstone, Bozeman are all offering up E10 for the general public just because of that ripple effect of what we started, and they want to follow our good example. So we found that we get enough bad press on other things we do, and this is one thing that makes Yellowstone look good. You know, be it fires or bears or sewage spills or whatever we do, we always seem to make the headlines. So this is one thing that's taking it in a different direction.
Taking it a positive. So this is getting a lot of exposure. How much of that exposure is American? How much of that is foreign?
A lot of foreign because they know about it already. For example, I don't know if you folks know this, but in Germany, over 50% of the gas stations have biodiesel pumps.
We have a German here.
Yeah, I doubt the 50%, but...
So if you guys don't mind, let's go see the slideshow and then you can eat. All these buildings are still in existence and being used today for administrative offices, seasonal housing, whatever. This is actually an ironic photo that was taken. This is actually the U.S. Cavalry. These were the original Buffalo soldiers. They were testing, again, these are taken up by the Mammoth Terraces, the very place they were supposed to protect. The Army was testing out new modes of transportation, i.e. the bicycle. These Buffalo soldiers bicycled down from Fort Missoula on their way to St. Louis and stopped in Yellowstone to show off their new mode of transportation. Again, great notoriety. Here it's being greeted by the governor of Montana at the state capitol up in Helena. Probably the only truck to ever drive up those steps. One of the, this is the story I was going to tell you folks, one of the interesting concerns that Yellowstone park managers had when the biodiesel truck arrived is the fact that, and I'm sure you're aware of this, that the exhaust smells like French fries. And one of the real concerns is that this truck was going to become a bear attractor. And because if a family was to leave a jar of cooking oil on their picnic table overnight, they'd be cited. And here I am packing around 300 gallons. So the truck was driven to Washington State University in Pullman, where we performed experiments on 4 captive grizzly bears and 4 captive black bears. We actually piped exhaust into their cages to see if they were attracted to the smell. This is actually the facility and the bears in these cages back here. You can see the high-tech way we're doing this with the duct tape and the stovepipe here. We actually took this pipe and hooked it to the exhaust, and this pump just pumped it into their cages.
How they react.
The conclusion was they weren't attracted. This is an interesting, one of the participants in the experiment, this sow grizzly was actually a Yellowstone bear that had gotten into trouble too many times and had to be relocated to Washington State, and she became a part of the experiment, so it was kind of a neat little closure to her life. This is Joe Thompson and company delivering fuel from University of Idaho over in Moscow. Again, very sophisticated operation here. We just a transfer pump and we pump it into up this pipe and into a 10,000 gallon above ground holding tank, which I've been able to dispense out of year round. And part of that reason being the tank is above ground and it's on the southern exposure. And I just wait for a sunny day and it just gravity flows right into the truck. Hey, Village, these folks are actually waiting to get gas.
Here you go, here's new business. Get diesel-powered snowmobiles and power them with biodiesel.
Yeah.
Can't be that difficult.
Another issue with snowmobiles, Yellowstone, we groom every one of our roads every night of the winter. So the public has a smooth, hardened surface. We only groom over the existing road corridors. There's no off-road travel allowed in the park. Hence, you've got a 20-foot wide corridor that's smooth and flat and hard, which makes it very attractive for these guys to walk on instead of 6-foot powder in the trees.
Yeah.
So now you've got this corridor that's shared with bison, elk, snowmobilers, skiers, coyotes, snow coaches, and it gets very, very dangerous. And this gets very dangerous. And I'll show you this next slide.
Get that stinky piece of shit out of here.
Which one are you talking to?
I'm playing the part of the question.
There's usually at least one human bison confrontation on the snowmobile every year, more likely two. The human usually never wins. Any other questions? It's been a great audience, thanks.
How much should we get out?
I got 17 gallons.
17 gallons we got out. That's all that's in there? The pump will go up.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to take all your fuel, so you can
How much is left in there?
There's nothing.
Oh.
Well, there's something, but not much.
We'll have another 50 gallons soon.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to produce close to 55 gallons probably.
So we should put this back.
Yeah.
You brought all your own fuel from Colorado?
Yeah.
How many gallons did you need round trip?
So yeah, about 38 gallons here.
Looks like you got some glycerin on the bottom.
This one?
Yeah.
This is actually all the half gallons left in the bottom, condensing into one, because now I can recover quite a bit.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if I'll use that because that's still pretty cloudy. So I'll probably just take that and then filter it when I get home and recover this much. And that'll be all the glycerin at the bottom.
How long have you been driving on biodiesel?
About 7,000 miles now on some percentage of biodiesel.
Any problem with your injectors?
Nah.
How many times have you replaced a fuel filter in that time?
Once.
One time?
Yeah.
Running good?
Yeah, she's running real good. And I haven't been filtering or anything. I've been real lazy when it comes to that.
Well, you filter it when you're making it, right?
Nope. Not even.
Harvesting.
Oh, yeah, just like to get the French fry bits out. So that's all pretty cloudy.
My bad. Oh, okay. Okay, I thought it was grape seed.
Yeah, got that mustard though. Smell it.
Yeah, that's mustard. I don't know what.
Stuff, but it's a totally different world here. I mean, we drive into a town, we drive into some village in El Salvador. The show has begun the second we drive in with that corn cob bus, and you know we've got the circus look thing and.
A corn cob bus wouldn't be very popular here because there are so many buses around.
Seriously.
Formed a business. There's a lot of interest, and I think we're going to pull it together so that we can keep, that others in the past haven't been able to sustain themselves on it. So it's been harder to get it flowing. But if we can get this pushed through, we can actually start to make this revolution happen.
Let me tell you something. It's the best time you can spend, let's say for a week, to change your life. I mean, how many times do you pull up to the fuel station, put that nozzle in, smell those fumes, pay that money, $40 gone again, then you go to the mom and pop, get the used French fry grease out, do the chemical reaction that you learned here in 1 week, and change your life.
All right.
Thanks.
When you're running out.
Right down the data.
A big jug of grease.
Was this from the Indian place?
I think it's Tifu's Tiger.
Right?
Right.
Thank you, Tifu's Tiger. Like itself a commodity to be sold or bought. I guess it would. Why is that? That's quite reasonable.
that the methyl ester process? Or straight grease? Oh, that's right. That's the straight grease type.
This runaway train is going blind. Not much longer till the end of the line. But where can you run to when you're running out of time?